Hello everybody, welcome to our lovely new flower of the month, and this is our SVG files. Now this is for the flower of the anemone, and this is just beautiful. So again, with the SVGs, there's lots more that we can do with this one, especially when we're working with the brother scan and cut. So to set things off, I just want to quickly go through what is actually printed on the bottom of a sheet, just as a reminder. We're going to do a quick welding demo, just as a reminder, because these are over the edge dies, and so we're going to show you the over the edge SVG and how easy it is to weld these together to get this particular look and style of project. And then I'm also going to show you a quick demonstration of how to create an aperture, but we're going to use those big images because it's scan and cut. So first of all, when we're using our images, when we print them off, they look like this, don't they? Okay, so we've got this big black box around the outside edge. We've got the images in the middle, and I'm using the large. Now, whenever we're working with the SVG files, we will always give you 3 jumping off points. We'll always give you the original, and then there'll be 2 alternatives. There will be small and large, or there will be a large and extra large, but you will always get the original size as well. But being scan and cut and being SVGs, you're going to get decoupage elements that fit all those 3 sizes, and you're also going to get the reverse reflection with the decoupage. So we're giving you lots of different options and lots of versatility to create all those projects that you want to create. So on this one, it does tell me when I've printed this off, it's flower of the month. It's the anemone, which is what we're working with. Now it says this is over the edge large. Now the over the edge, when you actually see the dies, you will see that it comes as a big die, and it's got a separate die, so it's got 2 pieces that are in half. That's what gives you the over the edge. That's where the name comes from. Okay, it's a split unity. So we give you that with this. Okay, so you're going to be able to create that same design of project, and then it tells you that this is the large. Okay, and that this is the decoupage element. So everything that's written on the bottom of here is going to correspond with what's on the machine. So let's go to the machine and I'll show you what I mean. So first of all, we're retrieving our data from my USB. Flower of the month anemone. Now, when you open this up, you've got build a bouquet, which is the smaller elements of the actual SVG files, and then which actually builds a whole bouquet. And then you've got the over the edge element, which is the one really nice big single bloom. So that's the one we're working with at the minute. I'm going to open that. When we open that, we're again given extra folders. Detail cuts. These are fabulous to use as a drawing file because it puts all those lines and details in that you would usually see with a die. Matte cuts are exactly that. It's the matte layer that you would see. It's that outside edge that you would cut. And then the reflections are what the printed images are. So that's where I need to be. I'm opening up the reflections, and this is what I was saying about the actual size, the differences. For this one, we've got an original. So you'll always have an original, a large and a small in this circumstance, but for now I'm working with the large, and it tells me that on my sheet of paper. That's what I'm working with. There is a second colourway if you wanted, but that's for printing. Reflection DEC is the decoupage, and reflection cuts is the main image. I'm going to click on the decoupage because that's the one I'm wanting. It looks exactly like my printed image that I've got on my sheet, and I press OK. When you press OK at this point, it actually puts it and sets it on your working mat. To be able to move these around and actually align it up properly with the outer black edge that's printed, first of all, we have to group them together. Now, let me show you what I mean. At the moment, that's one. If I use my arrow keys, all these little red boxes all jump about, okay? We need these to move as one, so we need to group it so there's just one. So if I press this when I've grouped it, you won't see all those other boxes. So we go into Object Edit, So we don't. We're going to select all, everything on the mat. So we want that red box around all of it. So now you can see it's chosen every SVG file on there. It's selected them all. Press OK. Now we go into Object Edit. And this one here is Group. So we'll press that. They all become just one red box. So now we can move all of those together without getting them all mixed up. I'm going to press OK. So now we need to set our printed image onto the mat. So on there like that. And I align it in this top left-hand corner. Okay. Just burnish that down a little bit using my spatula. Pop it up to the machine, up to the rollers, and press Load Mat. It'll take the mat in. And initially what it does is read what mat am I using. So that's what it does at the moment. So now we want to press OK again because we want this here. We want to scan. We want to actually see what is on the mat. And that's going to allow us to actually line up the SVG file that's on the actual screen to what is on the mat, what we're seeing, the image. So that's what it's done now. It's had a look. And you can only do this with a scan and cut. There we go. Now in the background, if I get hold of that, and I'm going to pull that right to this side. So those black lines are the SVG. The imagery in the background, that is what it's actually scanned in, what it's seeing on the mat. And all we need to do, because we've grouped all this together, is we need to align that rectangle over the top of the one that's scanned in. Now I'm going to go into Edit and I'm going to click on my little magnifying glass. That is actually 200%. But if we click again, we can go as 400%, which is fabulous. Now all I'm going to do is, using my stylus first, is get as close as I can to hover over that box. That's pretty good actually. If you need to, these little cursor keys will move it around. Let me show you so we can nudge it so it's precise. I'm happy with how that looks. I'm going to press OK. Takes us back. Now we can see what we cut in. Press OK again, right through to cut. And I will set this cut in because I want to actually use this. Press Start. It won't take a second to actually cut those out. Then what we're going to do is use those matte layers. So when we went and we got those other folders, we want to go into the matte layer because what we're going to do is create an aperture in the front of a card. And by creating that aperture, we're going to have other mats and layers. So usually you would have to line it up, maybe put your mat on top of your card blank and then cut it out so your aperture is perfect through 2 layers of cardstock. Doing this way, we're going to group it together first, centralise that aperture, which is the mat cut, ungroup it, cut it out so we get one aperture, then we can resize just the rectangle box around the outside edge without moving that aperture in the middle. So we're going to get perfect mats and layers, but again, only because we've got a scan and cut that we can do that. So let this do this first, but I want to show you something else. So let me bring in this sample. So this sample is fabulous, and this is what I was talking about with regards to having the over the edge, okay? So it's this piece here, okay? So that means it's over the edge, and how fabulous is that? And that's done by welding that matte layer onto a shape. Okay, and it's really, really easy. So that is a super quick little demo that I'm going to show you at the end when we've created our aperture card. And again, because we're working with the scan and cut, because we've got those additional sizes, which are fabulous, it really opens up the different projects that we're going to be able to use our lovely SVG files for. It means that the card I'm going to make is one of the, you know, those big cards that you need that everybody signs, everybody in the office. So, or your local group, it could be somebody's big birthday and you want one card that everybody's going to sign so it's all in one place. That's what we're going to do with this. And that's because we have our super large reflections, which are just brilliant, and a scan and cut. So I've chosen myself a couple of little bits, colourways, to be able to do this. And I'm going to start with my smallest one, okay? My smallest mat layer. So I'm going to pop this card on here, like so. And again, I'm going to scan this in, and this is fussy cutting at its best, because you can't do this with any other machine. You can do it with your dies, but you can't do it size-wise, and especially lining this up is really tricky. So we've finished with that. I'm going to press home, so we've cleared everything off, and we're going back to the beginning and starting again. Retrieve data from my USB. I want my flower of the month, and then I actually want the over the edge, which is the big die. That's that one piece, that one image, and I want the mat cuts. And I would like the large one because we're working with the large piece. And that is all that is an outside edge, okay? So now I've selected that, I'm going to pop my mat back into the machine, load the mat, scan this in so I can see where I'm cutting. Scan that, say yes, please. And then we can align and fussy cut that first aperture, which is brilliant. So all it's doing now is having a look what's on the mat. And I'm only doing it with this particular cardstock because of it being a patterned one. Now, we can't really see very much of this. So I'm going to go into settings, and in the background, we've got alternatives. We can turn it off altogether, but I want to press this one because I want to darken it up, look. Now, it doesn't, sometimes when it's a really dark background, you don't always get to see that outside layer, but in this instance, we can. So I'm going to bring that into here, like so, and I quite like that where that is. I now need to add a rectangle, okay? Because remember, this is the aperture, so I need to create that shape. I'm going to add, going into our patterns, into our standard pattern shapes, I'm going to click on the rectangle and just set that on the mat. I'm not bothered the size-wise at the moment because I can alter it when it's on here. The first thing I'm going to do is go into Object Edit, and I need to rotate that rectangle. There we go. Pop it to the side so I can roughly see the size and gauge the size. And now I'm just going to press plus, like so. Pop that over the top of that aperture. And I do need to make it a little bit bigger. I'm quite happy with that. Now, I need to make sure that these two pieces, that aperture is in the middle of this, okay? So I'm going to press OK. OK again. Select everything on my mat. And then I'm going to go into my alignment function, into the alignment, and I want it centrally, vertically, and horizontally. And that is now perfect. While they are grouped together like that, I'm going to go back into Object Edit and group. So now that rectangle and that image is actually grouped together. So every time I move this on my mat, it will cut it out. So let's cut out the very first of our mat layers and press OK. Right through to cut and start. Now what I've already done ahead of time is, in fact, I'm just going to pause that because I need to make sure that I've got this the right way around, and I'll tell you why in a second. Because we've got reversed reflections, I want to make sure that the reflection that I'm working with, see, so I've cut out the reverse reflection and it doesn't, it's the other way on. So let's go back. So this is learning, edit, Object Edit. I need to ungroup, click off. I need to select the actual image, go back into Object Edit. So these are probably things that you might think, hang on a minute, I've done that the wrong way around. Flip that over. Now I know that that is actually going to fit because I've used the reverse reflection. So again, we want to group it all together. Go back into Object Edit and group. Now we can set it to cut. It's a good job I checked that, isn't it? Press OK, OK again, and cut. So while, like I was saying, while that is cutting, I can build my image. So I've already gone ahead. Look how beautiful these are, just fabulous. So I'm going to add a little bit of shape and pop a little bit of tape and things on these. And this is the beauty of having a scan and cut, because at the moment my scan and cut's doing all the normal stuff and I'm actually getting the rest of my things ready. So I need a little bit of tape on the back of some of these. Like so. So I can add in, whoops, a decoupage element. And I'm offsetting, even though this is decoupage, I want to offset this. I don't want it to be sat flush. So it looks like I've got extra petals underneath. And that is another beauty of actually having the option of doing that. So I'm going to unload my mat. And this is the first of our pieces, but I want both of these, okay? So that is my aperture. So that is the first thing that I want, but I want to keep this as well. Okay, so take this off, like so, pop that to one side. Now I've got a lovely pale blue cardstock. And what we're going to do to be able to do this is go back to the machine. I'm going to press OK. Oops. And we want to go back to here. I'm going to go into Edit. Okay. I need to ungroup these. Ungrouped it. So I've now got two images. And the image I'm working on is just the rectangle. So remember, this matte layer needs to be bigger. So all we're going to do is increase this layer. But we've not moved that middle piece, remember? We've not touched it. I'm going to press OK, load my mat, and cut this one out. And because we haven't moved that central piece, that actual aperture, it will be in the right place. Press OK, OK again. Keep going until it cuts. Yep. And then the next one, again, all we're going to do is increase the actual rectangle again, and then that is our actual card base, which is brilliant. So when we build this and we make the card, when I glue this in, I'm going to glue that on the inside to the base of the card. This is then going to be the aperture, and the actual die is going to be here, or the SVG, should I say. Which one is it? Lost it. That is going to sit snugly on there, okay? So let's do that little bit while the machine is doing all the work for us. And again, these are little hints and tips and things that you wouldn't normally be able to do any other way than using a scan and cut. Especially having these bigger blooms, because these really are beautiful. So just pop that on there like that. Here, I'm going to use the wet glue. So I'm mixing up my mediums that I've got going on. And so stick that down like that. So that's my inside of my card. Remove that. I've now got my matte layer. That one sits on top of there. It's a perfect aperture, but it's a perfect matte. Can you see that? So because we haven't moved that, it's going to be precise. And I'm not going to get rid of that because maybe I'll use it for another card and do something very similar. And then finally, we need to create our actual card base. So again, pop my white card on here now. Burnish that down. Load the mat. and then press OK, and I need to go back to the mat. I'm going to edit. Now that rectangle is now lit up again. We need to go to Object, Edit, and remember this is ungrouped. We've not done anything more with this, and we need to resize that rectangle. So go into here. I've not touched anything else on the screen, not moved anything on that working mat, and I'm now going to increase that outside mat, okay? I'm not bothered about what the numbers are at the moment. Press OK, OK again, right through to cut. And now that is cutting the front piece of my card base. And then to actually create the back, we're going to delete the aperture, the SVG file that's in the middle of that, and then just cut out the rectangle. And we've made an entire card just by using one piece of those lovely SVG files. Now, can you imagine doing another card? Because it's the same principle. You can line up several, so you can have 3 apertures. Maybe it's only the flower head. So you can use 3 apertures on your card, put a rectangle around the outside edge, and as long as you're only changing the rectangle size and increasing it, all of your apertures are going to be in the same place every single time. It's brilliant. So this is now the front of our card blank. Unload that, take this out, and again, I'm going to keep this because you never know. In fact, on its own, if I was to put those two together like so, so we're making another card here without even knowing it. Where is it? Place that on there, score that back one, and then that would lay just on its side, and that would be a beautiful card just all on its own. Excuse me. This is the bit that we're looking at though, isn't it? Let me show you this. So every time we've increased the outside rectangle, excuse me, I am now going to lay this. This is our first mat layer. So the white one is our card blank. Perfect all the way around. The coloured one is that first aperture and that first mat layer. And it's a perfect mat all the way around. And then when we do the next one, that is going to sit on the inside edge. So when we open the card, and we've got that beautiful floral on the inside. So next thing we need to do is just go back to the actual image, go into Edit. This time we want to select the flower and we're going to delete it because we don't need that anymore. We've created all our apertures that we need. They're all precise. They all line up beautifully. Pop that on there. So while I'm cutting out this, I can glue everything else together. And again, when you're creating apertures, mix up your mediums, okay? So maybe you want this as a flat mat, so that's going to be your finger lift tape. And then maybe your printed paper, you want on a foam backing, so it's a little bit more raised up, more definition. I'm going to press OK, keep going until it cuts. Press start, and that's cutting the back layer. So let's pop these together. So I'm just using a little bit of finger lift tape. 1, 2, and then on exactly as I said for this one, using some foam tape. Now when I'm using foam tape for something like this, I'm only going to take the backing off of this, but I'm going to stop this from getting crushed, and I add pieces of it because it's the same depth as the tape on the edges. It will stop this actually getting crushed and to the next piece. So now unload my mat, and that is the back of my card cut. So let's build this. Okay. Oops. all I'm doing there is burnishing that down. And I know this is going to fit perfectly. Put my glasses on. So all I'm going to do is I'm looking here. I'm not going to worry about everywhere else, because when I lay that down, I know that that is a perfect fit. Because I've done it all on the Scan and Cut. Flip this one over. So this is my top matte layer, like so. Again, I'm lining it up. I'm just going to have to pick this up because it's a bit easier for me to see and it keeps my head out of the way. Again, like so. Okay, so that is that, where we need it to be. We need our tape on this one because this is our back. Just down one edge. And remember, we didn't have to do anything with this other than delete the actual SVG matte layer out of it. So I know that's a perfect fit. So that is the card blank built. Okay, so that's my card. I will score it at the end. And then this sits inside here perfectly. But I'm going to glue that down because when I lift that forward, that is going to sit in there. So I want to, should have scored this, but let's pretend. We're with friends, aren't we? We don't, there we go, pretend we've scored that. And now I'm going to use my wet glue. A little bit of wet glue. Like so. And I've used wet glue for this because it's going to give me a little bit of wiggle time. Because I can bring that in like so. Oops. Line it up. Because again, we're using that matte layer. It fits the aperture perfectly. So once I've got all that glued down, so that's an aperture card. The aperture is in the centre of all of those mats and layers. All those mats and layers are perfect. We've used the biggest of the sizes, and if we wanted to, with all our lovely extra florals, could add a little bit more decoration on the outside like this. Okay, and these are the other. So again, this is using the large, still the large, but this is the Build a Bouquet side of things. And then even with the Build a Bouquet, you still get your, the word escapes me, extra pieces, decoupage images, both in the right sizes, the originals, so you get the 3 sizes and you get the reverse reflection. So let's add a little bit of that greenery and then I'll quickly show you how to weld that over the edge card. So then you've got 2 different designs to be able to work with. But that is one of those really big cards that we all need every now and again. And it's got an aperture that's perfect all the way through. That beautiful image sits on the inside. And because I saved that printed image, it matches in the background. So I hope that helps and a little bit of inspiration of how to use that. So the next piece, it is only using it on the machine. So we're not going to cut this out. It's just literally showing you. So press home. If you were to want to use that again, absolutely. Save it onto your USB because you're only then doing the work once. So press OK because we don't really need to save it. So we're going to go into Retrieve Data, into the USB, into the Flower of the Month again. And I still want the over the edge because the over the edge is where that matte layer is. I want my matte cut. And I'm going to go, let's go with a small one. So we'll use a different size because we can. Okay, I'm going to say yes, set that on the mat. Now we're wanting to create one of those over the edge sizes. First of all, we need to add, add a rectangle, or it could be an oval. We'll stick with the rectangle because that's the bit easier way option of showing you, because once you do it this way with a rectangle, you can do it with all kinds of shapes. Set that on the mat. So my rectangle is here and I need to alter the orientation, so I need to change it round. Object edit. Let's rotate it by 90 degrees and I'm going to set it to this side, okay? Now the next thing I need to know is how big is this? So let's go into here, and we know this is 132 high. So we need this piece to be 132 or a little bit more, okay? So first of all, it's got to be 132 high. So let's get to that first. Okay, so that now matches the height of this. But I think that's a little bit too wide. I don't need it that wide. Here we have a little key with a split down the middle. So that unlocks the height and the width. So it's unlocking the aspect ratio. So let's press that. And I'm going to make that narrower, like so. Hover that over the top. So now we need to align these to make sure that it's working right, because we want it aligned top and bottom. Press OK. OK again. Select everything on the mat. So that one red square, it's now all selected. We want to go into alignment, into this, and I always just go align to the bottom. Did you see it all drop down? So that's now aligned. But while it's still selected, press OK again, go back into Object Edit, and when we weld this, not group, weld this, it processes it. It always asks you, we can't unweld it. You can if you go into Canvas, but on the machine it says, do you still want to do this? Absolutely. Press OK. That has now given us, so if you can see on there, let me move it away from that line. Can you see on there, it's given us this lovely shaped over the edge image to the flower, which if I bring in this sample again, here, it's done this for us, which is fabulous. So by adding on or welding on a rectangle to this over the edge piece, that's when you can create projects that look like this. So there's 2 little demos for you of how to use our new fabulous flower of the month. Hope you've enjoyed them and it gives you a little bit of inspiration. And I'll see you all again soon. Bye.
If you want to see more from Highlight Crafts, make sure you click the like button. Subscribe by clicking the subscribe button below and click the bell icon to receive notifications of all of our future content. You can also click here to see our latest video, or click here to see more videos like this one.